Teach me finance, janitor. The CEO's smirk sliced through the boardroom like a polished blade, sharp and effortless, meant to amuse the powerful and humiliate the powerless. The words hung in the air, heavy and glittering with mockery, while the city skyline shimmered arrogantly behind the glass walls. In that moment, everyone saw a janitor holding a mop. No one saw the man holding back a storm. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of hidden potential, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs inspiration, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us why respect should never depend on a job title. Daniel Reyes had learned long ago how to make himself invisible. At 38, he wore gray coveralls with his name stitched over his heart, pushing a mop across marble floors that reflected the lives of people who never looked down. He worked nights and early mornings at Vance Global Holdings, one of the largest investment firms in the city. By day, he was something else entirely, a single father to an 8-year-old daughter named Sophia, whose laughter was the only luxury he truly cared about. The boardroom confrontation hadn't been planned. Daniel had entered quietly to clean up after a late executive meeting. The scent of espresso and ambition still lingered in the air. Charts filled the screens, red arrows pointing downward like silent accusations. The company was bleeding money after a reckless acquisition. The executives were tense, their expensive suits unable to hide the panic in their eyes. He hadn't meant to look at the projection. But numbers had always spoken to him the way music speaks to a musician. Even while pushing his mop, he noticed the inconsistencies in the revenue model, the unrealistic growth projections, the debt structure that was suffocating the company. Years ago, before life had unraveled, Daniel had been a financial analyst with a promising career. Then came the hospital bills when his wife fell ill. Then came the funeral. Then came the layoffs during a market crash. Grief does not pause for ambition. Debt does not wait for healing. He had taken the first job he could find, promising himself it would be temporary. Temporary had stretched into 5 years. When the CEO, Richard Vance, noticed Daniel's lingering glance at the screen, he chuckled. The room followed. The mockery was easy, effortless. A janitor in a boardroom was entertainment. And so came the smirk and the words that would echo through the building long after the laughter faded. Daniel could have lowered his eyes and left. He could have swallowed the humiliation the way he had swallowed so many others. But something shifted inside him. Maybe it was the memory of Sophia asking why he never talked about his old job. Maybe it was the exhaustion of pretending he was less than he was. He straightened slowly, gripping the mop like a staff planted in the ground. His reply was calm, measured, almost gentle. He said that if they restructured the debt into staggered maturities instead of short-term obligations, they could free up liquidity. He mentioned that the acquisition target's projected synergies were inflated by at least 12%. He suggested divesting 2 underperforming divisions to stabilize cash flow before the next quarter. His voice didn't shake. It carried the quiet authority of someone who had once lived and breathed spreadsheets under harsher lights than these. The laughter died first. Then the smirk. Silence expanded across the polished table as executives stared, trying to reconcile the man in coveralls with the analysis that cut sharper than any consultant's report. Richard Vance's expression shifted from amusement to irritation, then to something dangerously close to uncertainty. He demanded to know how a janitor could possibly understand leveraged buyouts and cash flow hedging. Daniel explained, without drama, that he had a master's degree in finance. He explained how medical debt and layoffs can reduce or resume to irrelevance. He explained that dignity is not erased by a uniform. There was no self-pity in his tone, only truth. What followed was not applause. It was interrogation. They questioned his assumptions, challenged his numbers, tried to find cracks in his logic. Daniel answered steadily, drawing from memory, from experience, from nights spent reading financial reports after putting Sophia to bed. The boardroom transformed into a battlefield of intellect. And slowly, reluctantly, the executives began to see what the CEO had nearly dismissed, a strategist hiding behind a mop. In the weeks that followed, something remarkable happened. The company implemented parts of Daniel's plan, at first quietly, without public acknowledgement. The debt was restructured. 2 divisions were sold. The hemorrhaging slowed. By the next quarter, the stock stabilized. Investors who had been preparing to flee began to reconsider. Inside the building, whispers replaced laughter. Richard Vance faced a choice: protect his pride or protect his company. For a man accustomed to power, humility felt like defeat. But the numbers did not lie. He called Daniel into the same boardroom where he had once mocked him. This time, there was no smirk. Daniel was offered a temporary advisory position. It was framed as an experiment, a cautious step. But to Daniel, it felt like oxygen returning to lungs that had been compressed for years. He didn't celebrate wildly. He went home and told Sophia that sometimes life tests you quietly, and sometimes it surprises you just as quietly. Balancing 2 worlds wasn't easy. By day, he reviewed financial models and debated strategy. By evening, he packed school lunches and helped with math homework. He carried the weight of proving himself, knowing one mistake could confirm every prejudice about his past. There were sleepless nights, moments of doubt, flashes of anger at the years lost. But there was also purpose. And purpose can outshine resentment if you let it. Months passed, and the experiment became a permanent role. The janitor's cart disappeared from the hallway. In its place, a modest office with a window overlooking the same city skyline that had once felt distant. Yet Daniel never forgot the sound of that first laughter. He greeted maintenance staff by name. He insisted on fair wages in budget discussions. He understood, better than anyone in that building, how fragile security can be. One afternoon, during a company-wide meeting celebrating the firm's recovery, Richard Vance publicly acknowledged Daniel's contribution. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't tearful. But it was real. The applause that filled the room this time carried respect instead of ridicule. The true victory, however, happened later that evening. Daniel picked up Sophia from school, still wearing his suit jacket but with sleeves rolled up. She looked at him with the same unwavering pride she had always shown, whether he carried a mop or a briefcase. As they walked home, she squeezed his hand and said she always knew he was more than what people saw. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminds you of someone who deserves recognition beyond their circumstances, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach the people who need hope the most. And before we end, I have a special request. Comment the word dignity below if you believe no job defines a person's worth. Because in the end, the most powerful lesson in that glass-walled boardroom was not about finance. It was about seeing the invisible, respecting the overlooked, and understanding that brilliance can wear coveralls just as easily as a tailored suit. Daniel Reyes did not just restructure a company's debt. He restructured the way an entire building measured value. And sometimes, that is the greatest return on investment of all.